Renforth Resources is working to define the amount of battery metals it holds at its wholly owned Surimo district in Quebec. Joining us for more on the story and the company is the president and CEO, Nicole Brewster. Hi, Nicole.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to tell you about Renforth.
Absolutely. Now, you've said that the Surimo is large, underexplored, and well located. So, can you give us an overview?
Correct. Yeah. So Surimo is 330 square kilometers in size, which is about 4 times the. It would encompass 4 of the island of Manhattan, for example, and a whole bunch of Toronto and the GTA sprawl. We're located just south of the Trans-Canada Northern Route. We're between the towns of Rouen and Val-d'Or in northern Quebec, but it's Quebec's near north. Interestingly, we're actually right beside and joined to the Canadian Malartic Mine, which is Canada's largest open pit gold mine, which is a good precedent set in our immediate neighborhood. And it's been very lightly explored. It saw a little bit of work in the 1980s when they were looking for gold, and they documented battery metals, but they walked away from them because in the 1980s, in a very established gold mining camp in Quebec, nobody was looking for base metals. So we have it now.
All right, very good. Now, so you're focused on Victoria West, which you say is becoming more and more interesting, and Lalonde, where I understand you made a few discoveries lately. So can you give us a few highlights from some of the recent work?
For sure. So Victoria West is a 20-kilometer long magnetic anomaly, and we've proven that magnetism reflects mineralization, which is a nickel cobalt PGE body, as well as a copper zinc silver body. So we acquired the property and we drilled it in 2021, and we thought we drilled 2.2 kilometers of the 20-kilometer structure. Our subsequent exploration has determined that we actually only drilled the southern shoulder of the magnetic anomaly. We now know the magnetic anomaly has 2 shoulders in that area. So, it looked good when we only drilled half of the 2.2 kilometers. We can only assume that it's going to get better when we manage to drill the entire 2.2 kilometers, both the north and south shoulder. The other thing that's interesting at Victoria West is we've got the highest rock sample on surface for nickel just to the east of where we drilled a couple kilometers. Our highest priority target is in the western end of Victoria, where the structure folds back on itself. So Victoria, still lots going on. We certainly don't know definitively what Victoria is yet. However, we're super excited about what we do know. So if it continues to get better, that's only much more exciting. Lalonde is 3.7 kilometers north of Victoria. It's a comparable magnetic signature, but we've only ground truthed 9 kilometers of it. So we know factually that 9 kilometers is mineralized. And in fact, we're seeing slightly better grades on surface and more consistent. We just completed some trenching there. Our guys are in the field right now chiseling out the channel samples. And we're quite excited about what we see there in that it's all new. I mean, I know it sounds like we're really excited, but it is exciting. This is all new. We're creating data. We're literally creating wealth from a field. So it is exciting. And I hate to keep using the word, but when I think of a better one, I'll let you know.
Well, if you're excited, investors should be excited as well. Now, I know, Nicole, a lot of companies will bring new technology to bear and augmented with existing data. Are you doing something along those lines, or is it more old school mining?
Yeah, so we like I said, I staked this ground. It's 100% owned because we staked it to acquire it on old data, a little bit of limited exploration right beside the road that runs on the property. That's how they discovered the mineralization. In fact, they built a road through it. We took that and the government geophysics, and we flew better geophysics, better instrumentation, better technology, and we flew it in conjunction with an EM survey. The EM survey registers sulfides in the first 150 meters of rock. That's its depth penetration, and it gives us anomalies. The government hadn't done that, hadn't been done there before, and it's relatively newer technology. That's proving to be a roadmap to mineralization. The EM anomalies are occurring within the magnetic structure, and every time we go to the EM anomaly, we find mineralization on if we can find surface bedrock. Now, the way we're doing it, though, we're doing something new, which is actually really old, as you alluded to. We have boots on the ground pretty constantly, but our guys are literally walking over the ground for the 330 square kilometers. You can imagine we got a lot of walking to do. But we're not doing desktop exploration. We're not extrapolating from little bits of data using AI. We're putting guys in the field and eyes that have seen this before, and we're developing it with real science. So it's exciting.
And your team is getting their steps in for the day too while they're doing that.
You better believe it.
There you go. Now you've also got the gold deposit called Parback, and Nicole, you've been quite straightforward about it. You say you've received interest. You will not sell that property for anything less than $10 million. Is there any update on that? Anybody knocking on the door lately?
Yeah, we have one group that's looking right now. We have people come, they take a look and they walk away. And the price point that I use is granted somewhat arbitrary, but it's to save everyone's time and expense of going through a due diligence process when they're really looking to find a distressed asset. Because Parback's not a distressed asset. It's wholly owned. It's, and it's a gold deposit next door to Canada's largest open pit gold mine. So it's by no means distressed. I was in New York recently, a lot of interest in New York, looking for gold properties, to list it in a new vehicle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it continues to attract eyeballs. Right now, internally, we're doing a resource update that's taking much longer than I expected it to. However, it's access to staff, and this will only ever be internal, but the function of it is in order to have meaningful discussions around pricing with people, incorporating our 15,000 meters that we drilled in the last year and a half. So yeah, it's still there. It's still getting the eyeballs, and at some point, yeah, it'll be sold, but there's no duress. So that's the bit that, I won't tell you the price I was offered on the phone. I think it was Monday night this week, and I laughed at the guy. I said, "If you want to put that in writing, I'll give you an answer in writing." So
I can
no
imagine.
email, funnily enough.
Might be a two-word answer.
Pretty
Now
much.
you've said, Nicole, that realistically, it'll take about a year to a year and a half to get your hands around the project, to get some sort of semblance of valuation, and ultimately the numbers will talk. So can you sort of take investors through that timeline from here to there?
For sure. And I mean, the timeline again, it's speculative on my part. I unfortunately cannot see the future. And it also relies on access to funding, and selling Parback would be part of that. But I have to presume that the scale of structures we're talking about at Surimo, they need work. They need to be drilled. I told you we drilled off 2.2 kilometers. We have one drill hole that got down to about 150 meters depth. So we have a lot more drilling to do. We have some higher priority targets to test. We're going to do very loose, very open drilling because we're just trying to illustrate the mineralization. We'll be meeting with, for example, Dr. Franklin in order to get his insight on our path forward in terms of drilling and exploration. But we just need to do the work. I believe that as we do the work and the data is put out there in form of press release results, it can't be long that a new battery metals occurrence that is maturing beside a highway in the best province in this country with the cheapest electricity to develop a property is going to sit unloved. This property is unique in that we have scale, 20 kilometers and another 9 kilometers, and it's at or very near surface, and it's largely vertical. So, we're fairly unique, and I think it is going to attract attention because we're only going to see the onshoring, the friendshoring of resources. It's pushing producers, OEMs, consumers of the metals to demonstrate that they've got ethical sources, responsible sources, and North American sources, or U.S. trade agreement countries. So it's going to get really interesting going forwards. And we're just going to put our heads down and do the drilling, put the numbers out there. But I think the macro is going to drive the attractiveness of the property.
Right. Now, further to that, you mentioned Agnico as a neighbor. So does it make logical sense that you prove it out and a year and a year and a half down the road, somebody comes knocking and is interested?
Possibly. I mean, I know they're paying attention. Due north of Surimo, by perhaps 10 kilometers, say, less than that likely, is the Laurent mine, which is the crown jewel of Agnico. The Laurent mine it's a 3.5 kilometer deep now gold mine, but what they're actually mining is a VMS. So they produce gold is technically, it's the most lucrative thing, but they produce a bunch of copper at Laurent as well. The mineralization we're seeing at Surimo is all pretty conventional stuff that can be ground and separated. There's no metallurgical puzzles or nightmares emerging or expected. So logically, Laurent is getting deeper and, they're mining less and less material, and mines do need to ensure a certain amount of throughput to keep the machines working. So it's quite likely that Surimo might have some functionality for Laurent. I've had a passing conversation to that nature quite some time ago, but I don't take anything that's said to me in passing lightly by established mining companies. So who knows is the true answer. Parback, of course, has the obvious functionality for them, but Surimo may be of interest as well. So in that we've got the ultramafic and a VMS or an MMS, all conventionally able to be mined or processed. So we'll see. It's not out of the running, for sure. Not out of the running.
You've also said a partner may be prudent. What's the thinking there? What are the possibilities there?
Well, the possibilities are endless. I mean, it's a huge property. It's got the scale to move the needle for a major mining company because the size of these structures, you could be looking at, and again, I'm speculating, let's be clear, I don't have a resource in place yet, but you would be or could be looking at a very long life of mine where you'd get your development costs repaid and you'd be making money and mining for quite some time. It's done in copper with very low grade nickel. It'll work, low grade, large scale nickel. Is the thesis, but a partner to offset the development costs or the costs of building the processing plant would make sense at some point. However, right now, it's wholly owned, and I intend to try and keep us wholly owned for as long as we can, because I just think there's value to that. So yes, for sure, a partner. But it's hard to bring in a partner when you don't know what you're partnering on. We do not have a resource in place. We cannot set a price yet. But with the way the market seems to be going and the macro picture, I think it'll be attractive and attract a partner. So
Okay,
we'll keep our eyes open.
Lastly here, Nicole, if you had a handful of investors in an elevator and they ask you what you did, what's your 30-second pitch on Renforth Resources?
Renforth is developing Quebec's newest, largest scale battery metals nickel polymetallic, wholly owned, road access, hydroelectric power lines, great place to mine, in a province that's pushing the critical minerals strategy very aggressively. So I think we're early stage. We've got lots of news to come, lots of eyeballs to attract. And the property is giving us the data and shows every sign of continuing to give us the data. So it's exciting. I'm back to using that word again, but it's exciting.
Very nice, Nicole. Almost like you've done it before. That was great.
Possibly.
Thanks for your time. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Okay, Nicole Brewster, President and CEO of Renforth Resources. Our thanks to her. And thanks to you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.